What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV, special Segwit2x edition. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to get alerted of all the new videos. We're doing a full week of these videos all about how to prepare for next week's hard fork with Bitcoin. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it, but you will get value out of this. So very exciting stuff. Now, the first thing you guys should do is go to coinmastery.com/Segwit2x, all one word. I've put it right here in the video. If you're listening on the podcast, whenever you get home or whatever, go download it. I would recommend doing it on a desktop as well. It typically works better, and then you can also follow along more easily. But go get that, because I'm going to go through that PDF, and if you guys have it, it'll just be easier for you later on. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Bitcoin right now. We're going to go through the PDF, and I'm going to put out probably 2 or 3 more of these PDFs throughout the week that get into more of the details that I'm sure many will help a lot of people. We're going to talk about what's going on with the altcoin market as it relates to Bitcoin, because there's going to be a lot of ups and downs, a few pieces of news, and then some investment strategy stuff. But really the focus of this week is to get you guys by Friday to have a plan, to be confident in that plan, and to be taking action on it in some way, and taking action on it so that by the time next week rolls around, you are in a position of confidence, you know what you're doing, and you understand why you are making the moves you're making. And that's really what this is all about. I mean, this channel is all about, but this seems to be a huge piece of uncertainty in the markets. And especially if you're just getting into investing, these are the kind of things that can just, you just want to get a second opinion on it. So go download that PDF. It's ever free. It's a Dropbox link. So it should just download coinmastery.com/Segwit2x. Looking at Bitcoin, this is really interesting, especially in the recent 24 hours or so. Over the weekend, I was spending a good amount of time just looking at the order books on some of the exchanges. I usually look at GDAX. Some of you have asked why I'm using Bitstamp on TradingView. Honestly, it's just because it has a longer history. This one goes back to, I think, 2013, and Coinbase only goes back to 2015. But on the order book side, I look at GDAX's order books because it typically has the least sophisticated traders, meaning that the buy walls and the sell walls are not nearly as well orchestrated as you would see on something like Bitfinex. Now, if you don't know anything about order walls or sell walls or buy walls or anything, you don't really need to know about that. It just means what are the people with the most amount of money? They're trying to move the price in some way. How are they trying to do it? And on GDAX, you can often see that. So as we saw this thing, as the price go up, we've seen lots of ups, lots of downs. And then in the past 24 hours, we're starting to see 2 major dumps, right? The first one coming from right around 7,600, and then the most recent one coming right around 7,400. And without any sort of hard proof, this, in my opinion, is a direct response to a lot of panic selling in the market. From what I'm seeing on all the social networks and from all the chat rooms and everything, there's such a deep-seated uncertainty about what is going to happen that there's a good amount of people that are selling off their Bitcoin. Now, the good news is a lot of that's going into altcoins, because as you can see in the prices increasing incrementally, but you're just seeing people starting to second guess themselves. And you can see that in the charts with the volume. You can also that's just how people are talking. Everybody's on edge in crypto right now for a good reason, because nobody knows. And that really brings us into this PDF. Now, for anybody who doesn't know about what's going on next week, on November 16th, which is next Thursday, right? Today's Monday, November 6th. So in 10 days, there's going to be a split in the Bitcoin chain, meaning there'll be 2 identical chains. This happened before with Bitcoin Cash and loosely with Bitcoin Gold, but this is the biggest one by far because it has much bigger players involved. It has Coinbase involved, and it has the potential to really pull a lot of strength and value away from the original Bitcoin or from the first Bitcoin. And so that's why everybody's a little on edge about this. So within this guide, what I want to go through, at least today, is 3 main strategies that you can implement on some level going into next week. Now, these are not, hey, go buy this coin at this price and exit at this. That's not what this is. What this is how do you set up your portfolio so that you are managing your risk? That's what this is all about. And conversely, how you are giving yourself the potential for upside. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to walk you through that right now. Now, second page, obviously, none of this is legal advice. I am not a financial advisor. So please do not take any of this as advice. This is purely just information that can help you make your own decisions, frame the way you're thinking. Especially, I'm realizing that a lot of people, this is maybe your first foray into investing. And often people who have invested, right, they have a 401k that's automatically withdrawn from their paycheck. And you're kind of jumping right into almost like the active trader. And that's a huge jump to make. So hopefully this can boil it down for you and give you a clear, actionable plan that fits within your goals, really, and also just your own tolerance level, which is a really important piece of it. So the third piece of this, I wanted to make it really clear. If you have $1,000 in crypto, or if you have $1 million in crypto, or anything in between, realize that any of these 3 strategies will still work for you. The goal of these strategies is to show you how you can look at the risk involved in next week. And one thing that people that are just getting into investing tend to think is that if you have less money, you should treat it with much more aggression than if you have $1 million of money. And to a certain extent, that's true, especially if you have earning power and you can replenish that $1,000 quickly. But I find that as an investor, it's better to think about all your money through the same lens to lock in gains over the long term. It's all about making sure that you continue to grow and mitigate your downside. So I just want to put that out there because this is applicable to if you have $500 in crypto or if you have $5 million. Any 3 of these things can and will work, or I should say, will have results for you. Now, anytime you're making big decisions with your money, there's a few considerations. And we're getting to this because I know all of you are individual situations. You all have different things that keep you up at night. You have also different things that get you really excited. And I just wanted to point these out because sometimes it's helpful for other people to ask you questions that maybe you haven't thought of. The first one is some people say, hey, what's your risk tolerance? And I think a better way to think about that is how much will your life change if you lose this money? I'm not here to spread fear or uncertainty or anything. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to help you visualize yourself in a situation that is a possibility, right? You got to be able to put yourself in those positions and experience that so that you're prepared for it. So the question is not what's your risk tolerance, because statistically speaking, people tend to overstate their risk tolerance by about 50%. Or I should say by 100%, right? The amount that they're willing to lose is actually 50% of what they say they will. So a better question is, if you lost all your money through this fork for some ungodly reason, if Bitcoin went to 0, how much would your life change? And if the answer is it would be devastating, that's a consideration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If the answer is, oh, well, it would suck, but I'd be back on my feet in a couple of weeks, that's another consideration. Second, how would changing my portfolio affect my taxes? If you're all in altcoins and you want to switch over to a different portfolio setup, there's tax implications for that. For every country, it's different. I can't speak to any sort of recommendations. If you go to bitcoin.tax, they can provide some helpful information. But assuming you're going to pay capital gains, most people, short-term capital gains, Is it going to make you pay more taxes, or are you going to take a capital loss so that you pay fewer taxes? Things to think about. Third consideration, if I concede that nobody knows exactly how to profit most from this fork, but I can control how much I lose, do I change my plan? This is an important one. If you just volunteer the idea that nobody in the world knows exactly how to make the most money on this fork, nobody. If you realize that, you can give up the idea that I have to make the most money possible on this fork. And if you realize what people do know and what you can control is how much this fork impacts you or affects you, that can change the way you make a decision. So then you start to say, well, do I change my plan knowing that there's not some secret that somebody isn't telling me? It's just that people are willing to roll the dice more than I am, and 10% of them get it right, and then they talk about how smart they are. Right? That's just what you should keep in mind. And lastly, should you even be thinking about this at all? I think for a lot of people, if you're just getting into crypto especially, if this is a lot, if this is overwhelming, if you're like, what am I doing? Realize that it's okay to just close your computer and take your coins off the exchanges. Make sure that you into a hardware wallet or keep them on exchange that gets you the snapshot, and just come back in 2 weeks. That's not a bad thing, right? It's going to be a lot less stress for a lot of people. So that's just a consideration, a question you should ask yourself. All right. Other consideration is timing. So if you're listening on the podcast, I'm looking at a calendar. Specifically at the end of this week is highlighted in green, and the next Thursday is highlighted in red. And we'll talk about the exchange-related timelines in a minute. But the end of this week is highlighted in green because I think by the end of this week, you guys should have a plan, or at least the semblance of a plan in place, and commit to it. Think about this for the next few days. Keep listening to videos. But what happens often is that you consume information, and then you just keep consuming more information, and you never actually take the time to say, okay, here's what I'm doing. Here is the plan, and I'm going for it. And so by the end of this week, I think you should really start to lock in your plan and start to make the moves you need to make accordingly. Last consideration is check your exchanges. I didn't link to the exchanges yet. I will later this week because Bittrex has not released their statement yet as of this morning. Coinbase, GDAX, Gemini, many others have. But you want to check your exchanges specifically about if you'll have access to your Bitcoin within the hard fork snapshot. And some of them are going to be closed for 24 hours. You can trade Ethereum, but you can't trade Bitcoin. So make sure you check your exchanges as you consider your timing on all this. And we'll get into the details later this week. Let's talk about the 3 potential scenarios leading up to the hard fork next Thursday. The first scenario is what I call wait and attack. This is a low risk reacting to markets buying the dips. Again, this is all loosely speaking, right? This is not black and white. This is just kind of an end of the spectrum that you can look at your potential moves. Now with the wait and attack, what you would do is you would get 75% of your money or your crypto or your portfolio or whatever, and it would be in fiat currency. That could be in US dollars, it can be in euros, it can be in Tether potentially if you are comfortable with Tether. And then you keep 25% in BTC, in Bitcoin, in order to capitalize on the snapshot and just kind of hedge yourself in that sense. But the real crux of this is that you take your portfolio and you cash out for now, right? Like obviously there's tax implications of that, blah, blah, blah. But we'll get into why you do that. But this is what the wait and attack, meaning that when the hard fork goes live, and let's say Bitcoin and Bitcoin2x start trading on either the 7th or the 8th, or I'm sorry, the 17th or the 18th of November, you are sitting on a pile of cash, and no matter what has happened, you have the ability to either buy low or buy a low altcoin or whatever it may be. Now, obviously, you're giving up some upside because if everything goes through the roof, you may have missed out on 20, 30%. But if everything drops considerably, you didn't get smoked, right? And you still get the 25% of the Bitcoin in order to get a bit of the Bitcoin, and you get a little bit of the 2x just in case. Some considerations with this one are check your exchanges, specifically so that you have access to your firepower. The worst thing with this would be you keep all your cash on, I don't know, Coinbase or whatever, and then you go to buy something during this and you realize you can't buy it because you didn't check. So make sure you check your exchange once you have this. Now, who is this for? This is for somebody who is a little more risk averse, who may have more money involved, who can't really afford to lose a lot of money, or somebody who's just bearish on the whole situation. The chances of you losing money are smaller in this, okay? The chance of you gaining money are also smaller, but the chance of you losing money, which is how I tend to look at these things, chances of making an informed decision after are higher. Meaning, after this whole thing is done, you will feel and be in a position where you can make a much better decision, because when you're sitting on a ton of cash, you get much less emotional than if you're sitting on a really volatile asset and you got to like strategize around it. So you'll typically make better decisions if you have a lot of cash on the sidelines. You're going to give up part of your Bitcoin 2x snapshot gains. So, right? So if instead of going 50-50, you're going to give up some of that potential B2X credit that you could get. And you're also going to miss some of the potential blood, specifically in altcoins or in Bitcoin or whatever it may be, right? You might not get that pop that happens in altcoins, which we'll talk about. But this is for somebody who's in Bitcoin right now, in crypto, who has a certain amount of money, who is looking at this fork and saying, you know what? The last thing I want is more stress. I don't want to deal with this. I would rather sit on the sidelines, have a little bit invested, but I'll come back and buy up whatever crashed. That's really it. Assuming something does crash. It just lowers your risk. Okay? Now the second strategy, I call the all-weather strategy. This is more of a medium risk. I think this is a split your exposure and capitalize on all areas of what could happen. I would say on average, this is probably where most people will or should end up, at least most of the people that are Coin Mastery followers. But this is what you'd imagine. It's an even split between your altcoins, between BTC, and between fiat. Which in the third strategy, we'll talk for people who have a lot of alts. But this really gives you the ability to capitalize on anything that happens on some level. Similarly, there's a bit of a larger window, meaning starting tomorrow, you may want to start moving your, buying and selling and moving your portfolio around so that you can get an even split on all of these things. And when I say 33% of each, I mean US dollar amounts or fiat dollar amounts. So if you have 3,000 in fiat, you have $3,000 worth of Bitcoin, you have $3,000 worth of alts. You can have 10 alts, but the cumulative is 3,000. So this requires most likely some capitulation, meaning you're going to have to liquidate some things to get this thing evened out accordingly, which some people might like, some people might not like. It's also going to involve altcoins. And really the benefit of altcoins, in my opinion, is going to be the short-term spike that comes after the fork happens. As the price of Bitcoin goes way up, so people get the snapshot, they're going to sell it off, dump it back into altcoins. That's where you're going to see the biggest runs, and time will be of the essence, meaning to get the maximum upside, you're going to have to leave your altcoins on the exchange, which is just another set of risks. So with this all-weather strategy, starting tomorrow or even today, you're going to want to build out your positions over the next week or so, because that's just the nature of how long this stuff takes. So that going into the fork, you have your strategy dialed in. All right. So with the strategy, you buy any dips with the fiat. That's what you do with this. So if things go way down after the fork, you have the fiat waiting there, and you can go in and you can buy whatever is really bloody. You get snapshots with the BTC, meaning you get your Segwit2x credited for this third. That's really the goal of the Bitcoin. And then the goal of the altcoins is to catch that pop that happens afterwards, the short term. I don't know if it's going to be a huge alter back type thing, but I do think that there'll be some sort of pop that happens accordingly. You're really splitting your risk into 3 possible scenarios. This one could potentially give you bigger gains and also potentially give you bigger losses than the first one, than the wait and attack scenario. So if you want a little bit more risk, you want a little bit more exposure to the volatility, this may be a good one. The key in this is the 33% fiat. This is the one that people resist a lot, but I can't tell you how much that will give you confidence and peace of mind going into this thing. So that's the second strategy. Now the third strategy is what I call Scalpers Paradise. This is high risk, and this is betting big on the altcoin bounce. If you were not involved or weren't around during the last split, which happened with Bitcoin Gold in October, right after the fork went live, a lot of that money flowed back into altcoins, and it shot the prices up really quickly for about a day or two, and then it started to trickle back down to current prices. So this is a much bigger deal, this fork, and if you're going to take this approach, you're betting that altcoin is going to be, that bounce is going to be huge. Again, this is not black and white. This is a spectrum, mostly fiat to mostly altcoins. But that's the strategy that you're looking at. In this one, I would recommend 75% altcoins, 25% Bitcoin. I would not do 100% altcoins. I would always make sure you have a hedge in Bitcoin. I mean, a hedge is as best you can call it that, but something that is less volatile than what altcoins are going to do. Some people might say go all in if you want to risk it. I think that's always dumb to go all in on anything. This is as far as I would ever go from a risk upside standpoint. Okay. So what this means is you're going to keep, you may keep some of your current alts, but you also may trade out some of your current alts or your Bitcoin or whatever and get what I call emotional alts. This is going to be a topic later in the week of what alts do I think are going to be the ones that pop the most. Like, I think that there are some clear signals, and that's what I'm going to share with you guys. So I'll explain those in the videos. Make sure you're subscribed for this week. And then the third piece of this is you actually scalp the B2X, right? One of the reasons why you would keep this Bitcoin is to get the Bitcoin Segwit2x coin and scalp it as fast as it goes on the latest exchanges. So if you have Coinbase, you wait for that exchange to go live, and the second it goes live, you either sell it or you wait and see where the price is going, and you sell it as soon as you possibly can and try to scalp that as free cash that you didn't have before. Now, the way this one is going to work is there may not be as big of a run up, especially if you're already heavy in alts that you like and you believe in. That's why I didn't draw it on the calendar. But starting next week is when you may start to, okay, I want to put these on the exchange. I'm actually going to put more coins on the exchange leading up to this. They're going to live on Bittrex so that I can hit the pop. And then there's also going to be a little bit of a grace period afterwards where there'll be potentially volatility. It may just be increased gains off of the altcoins. But the way that this strategy works is as a high trade situation, as a high volatility situation, you're going to want to keep your eyes on everything before and after. It's not as much about, okay, that happened. Let's go back to dollar cost averaging stuff. This is more of a, you trade and you watch the markets 24/7 type of thing. So what this one can do is give you the fastest potential increases. It does require a lot of focus and attention to the markets. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on that you need to pay attention to. Some people love that. They thrive on that. Some people don't. There's a high FOMO potential because if you own a couple altcoins and you see other altcoins that are going way, way, way up and yours are only going up like 10%, or maybe they're going down, there's a huge, like that is a very, very emotional moment where you may try to chase that other one and be like, I don't want to miss this. So you gotta realize that you are putting yourself into a FOMO situation, potential FOMO situation. And last, the reason why this is high risk is that if alts do not bounce, you are going to enter, or not you, we will enter the depression level of the bubble curve. So as you look at the down slope of the market cycles, right now we're in anger, as everyone knows from Twitter and everything. The next phase is depression. So if this fork actually ends up maybe getting a little bit of a spike, but if it ends up not doing much and the USD value of Bitcoin really drops and altcoins also drop, this could push people into that, like, wow, this is really bad phase. And that's the thing. Nobody knows, right? The only thing you can do is you can make sure that that doesn't happen to you as long as you're willing to give up the upside. But you got to at least recognize that if you do make that choice, this is a possibility. And I think it's an important one. So that's the three. Stay tuned this week. We'll go back to the other stuff, but make sure you subscribe and also have the notifications on, right? You ever click this bell, click the subscribe button, click this bell, and we'll keep doing this type of stuff this week. The question that a lot of people are going to ask me is, which one am I going to do? I'm going to do this one, all weather strategy, because for two reasons. One, this is kind of how I'm already set up to begin with, at least with my trading stuff. And two, I can handle risk because worst case scenario, if this all goes way, way down, I'm like, it's not the end of the world for me. So I'm willing to take a little bit more risk. If you're just getting started and you don't like to take losses, I would recommend the wait and attack. I think there's still going to be plenty of opportunities moving forward. If you're seasoned and you really want to roll it, the scalpers. But this week we'll keep talking about this. We'll talk about specifics. We'll talk about altcoins. We'll talk about timing and all that sort of thing. Okay? Cool. So I hope that was helpful, and I hope that this helps you guys make even better decisions. I'm going to go through the rest of this just to get kind of even out the video, and then we'll roll back. So the big news, you can see obviously all these altcoins are doing really well, which that always tells me that this money is flowing into altcoins for the most part, right? You got to do a little bit more of an analysis than that, which is people selling it. These are not necessarily big institutional types. These are people more like indie investors. This is kind of what I would say we all are. Is we're doing this some for a hobby, but also some is like hopefully is a full-time thing. So we're seeing a lot of cash flowing into Bittrex or into any of the altcoin markets. Like Binance is doing really well. Binance just listed this 100th coin. So Binance and Bittrex are both going to be interesting to watch. All these pot coins, I don't know what the deal is. They tried to figure it out, but who knows what's going on. Dennis Rodman's probably pretty happy right now. Two coins that I think are really interesting. So Verge, specifically because they had their news come out about the Wraith protocol. Remember I did that video last week, and it popped. And then it actually didn't come out until today. And then it's getting another big push, even though the news was already out, right? So it's like it actually got released, and it got a huge push in that sense. And so what I'm watching here is not necessarily about Verge the tech. I'm watching to see why this news cycle is behaving this way. And I think a lot of it is the nature of a lot of people who own Verge, right? It's people who own lower dollar coins, which is a different profile than people that own higher dollar coins. Not better or worse. That's just what it is. and also the implications of what that Wraith protocol could be, right? Like what story is that telling about the future of the product? So keep an eye on that, not necessarily as a buy signal, but as an indicator of market sentiment. Why do certain coins do well with news and why do certain coins not do? The other one to watch is Ethereum Classic. They are doing a huge Ethereum Classic conference right now in Hong Kong. And Barry Silbert, who owns Digital Currency Group, is one of the biggest investors. I think he owns like 5% of Ethereum Classic or something. And so you may see some action happening. People are very bullish on Ethereum Classic right now. I don't own any Ethereum Classic. I'm on the fence about it. Part of me wants to like it, but part of me still is like, I'm not totally sold. But it is something to watch because there's a lot of people pushing for it. Barry Silbert and that whole crew, they are pushing out a lot of new institutional instruments around Zcash, around Ethereum Classic, like all these different ways to get institutional money into these. That is their primary goal, which is why this stuff could be potentially interesting. So keep an eye on this. Keep an eye on Verge as the news unfolds to see how that impacts it, so that over the next couple of weeks we can keep an eye on what's going on here and obviously how it relates to Bitcoin. The Paradise papers were released. Leaks. This is kind of like the Panama Papers. If you don't know, it really just showed a lot of what a lot of very high net worth people are doing with their money as tax havens. And the reason why I bring this up is that this sort of thing and then like what's going on in Saudi Arabia is another interesting macro force where when you start to see rich people, like very, very rich, wealthy people, the top of the top elite in the international arena, when you see them starting to get their finances exposed, when people start to see what they're doing with their money, where their money is going, that is a very expensive problem that needs to be solved. And right now, there aren't many solutions to this. I mean, there's complicated holding companies and offshore banking and tax havens and all that, but there still is a paper trail, as can be seen here. This, to me, is a very bullish case for privacy coins. Crypto in general, but privacy coins specifically, because it's a way for the elite, the wealthy, not only to transfer money, but to store money in a way that can never be leaked. That's just the nature of it. It's different than Bitcoin, where you can see once you get someone's a wallet address, you can see how much is in there, it has been in there. These kind of things are a really big deal, and this is why macro can actually be a good buy signal. So what you need to do, or what you should do, watch how this and the Saudi Arabia stuff unfolds as it relates to what they're going to do next with their money, and see how the conversations start to come up around privacy coins within that. And if this starts to become a conversation around crypto, that is a very good buy signal, in my opinion. That's something that is the reason I buy a lot of privacy coins, is for rich people that want to keep their money off the books on some level. This is a huge market. Cool. All right, last is I thought this this poll was just super interesting, and obviously it's biased because people on Twitter following me are a very small subset of certain people. But I asked, what percentage of your overall investment portfolio is in crypto? And over half of you said it's more than half, 50%. And I would bet that a lot of that's in the higher end. 80 to 100% of all your investments is in crypto. And I think the reason why this is important is as it relates to the Segwit2x stuff, and as we move into more competitive and more volatile times, I mean, you're getting professional traders coming in with futures. You're getting new people entering this arena. If all of your money is in crypto, you may want to start thinking about the bigger picture, about risk, and not just the upside, but how do you make sure that you don't get you don't lose your money as well, because this is, I know the returns are really sexy, and it's really exciting to see 100, 200, 300% ROI, especially if you don't have a lot of money to begin with. But this is a lot of exposure into a market that has very little downside protection. And so I'll keep coming back to that. I don't think that, I'm not here to, tell anybody what to do about being responsible or whatever. Everyone, you do your thing. But this was it was kind of a wake-up call. Like, whoa, there's being balanced it makes a big deal. And I think in this fork, a lot of people are going to learn how powerful rebalancing is, how much it can help, things like that. So I just wanted to show this information to everybody to make it public. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Remember, guys, the download is coinmastery.com/Segwit2x. That's an immediate Dropbox download. There's no email, it'll download straight to your computer. I would recommend the desktop. Follow along. And then throughout this week, we'll probably do 2 or 3 more of those worksheets that will help you allocate, that will help you pick the right things, that will get you started, get the timeline dialed in, so that by next week, everybody is crushing it, making good decisions. Thanks so much for watching today, guys, and I will see you later. Peace out.